Hey folks, Mike Dawkins from World Cast Anglers here with your Jackson Hole fly fishing forecast for the weekend of April 20th and 21st. Gorgeous afternoon here on the Teton River in Teton Valley, the Grand Teton behind me. You can see they're still stacked with snow, and we haven't even really put a dent in our snowpack for runoff's sake and our summer season ahead yet. But that'll be coming in our 10-day once things warm up a little bit. It is sunny. It is pretty nice out here, but we still have this northerly breeze that's keeping things cool. It's a lot warmer than it was earlier this week when we had fresh snow on the ground and we had a low at the fly shop of 16 degrees. Hopefully those days are behind us for the spring season, and we're just going to see gradual warming and more sunny days coming up ahead. Something to note and to think about of fishing during this season is we're going to start to see these ebbs and flows, these peaks and valleys of our runoff, kick-starting and getting going. Last weekend, we've had daytime temperatures in the mid-60s, even low 70s, like down towards Idaho Falls and the lower Henry's Fork area, that did get a lot of our low-level snow melting off, running off into areas like the Snake and Jackson, the Teton, tribs of the South Fork, Warm River, and things like that on the Henry's Fork. But when you start getting these cooling trends and things like we had this week, where we had nighttime temperatures in the teens, sometimes maybe even the single digits if you get above 10,000 feet, that snowpack is going to re-solidify, and we're going to start to see that clarity and turbidity that we saw increase during the warmer weather start to decrease from the cooler weather. So you're going to start to see these waves and ebbs and flows in our clarity, in our flows, and things along those lines. The trick is getting right in between those areas where you're not fishing in the afternoon necessarily when the water temperature or the air temperature is the warmest, because you're going to start to see some of the runoff be at its peak, but not being in those times of the early morning periods when things are still really chilly and cold. So you're just going to have to time it and figure it out. Part of it's going to be when you can go, and we all know the best fishing is when you can go and get out there and be on the water. But take that into consideration, especially for areas like the Teton, the Snake, portions of the Henry's Fork that have tributary influence, that you're going to start to see things these next couple days really drop and clear. And then by the weekend, when things warm up, into the 50s and 60s, we'll probably see flows and turbidity increase. Jackson Lake right now, 76%. Palisades Reservoir, 81%. We're starting to get sort of close on some of those numbers of when water managers are going to start to, release more water, make some room. American Falls is pretty full. That's why we've got flows on the South Fork around 10,300 CFS. But we're sort of running that gambling game of having a little bit too much water. I know you can say, Dawkins, I've watched your fishing reports for a while, and you're always complaining about not enough water or too much water or this or that. So beggars can't be choosers. I'd rather be in a situation like we are now, where we have water stored instead of no water up in the mountains, but it is getting a little close on the reservoir capacity level. Looking into the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, they both look warmer than they have been this week, 50 and 28, 56 and 30. Saturday's supposed to be sunny, lots of sunshine. Sunday, it looks to be partly cloudy, and we're supposed to have some southwest winds up to 10, 20 miles an hour, which will be probably a welcome change from this cool, cold northerly wind. Looking at the Teton behind me, 472 CFS right outside of Driggs. 10,040 CFS there on the lower river. As I was just saying, water clarity on the Teton and turbidity have decreased. Our clarity has increased, and that's going to open up some fishing opportunities here for the next 3, 5, 7 days. You're still going to see cold water temperatures, so you'll probably be limited to fishing, midges, maybe some early blue wings, maybe some caddis. That's going to limit your dry fly fishing activity. Streamer fishing will probably be a pretty good bet. Darker streamers in your blacks, purples, and browns that provide the best contrast in turbid water conditions are going to be pretty good, and good bets, there for visibility during off-water color, conditions and things along those lines. All the boat ramps are open. When I got up here, there was actually a couple drift boats floating and fishing, so it's time. South Fork of the Snake, 10,300 CFS coming out of Palisades Dam, 11,400 on the lower river. Similarly, we've got really good water conditions on the South Fork of the Snake right now. With clarity, the South Fork of the Snake technically has limited tributary influence, whereas the Snake and the Teton and some of these other rivers have pretty substantial tributary influence, so water clarity stays a little bit better later and during that runoff process. But what you do have to deal with 81% of capacity of where that discharge is coming from is you've got some really cold water this time of year. So your tactics are mostly going to be nymphing, mostly going to be streamer fishing. I would suspect maybe a little bit of dry fly fishing with, you know, your midges, maybe some early blue wings, maybe some caddis, but I would expect it to be very sporadic and in certain places. I would concentrate on covering water with nymph rigs, covering water with streamers, you know, keeping flies low, slow, inside corners, buckets, tail outs, any of those areas where you're finding a little bit slower water speed, where fish aren't going to have to aggressively hold to consume energy, I think is going to be the place to be during these colder water periods of spring and with these higher flows. All those boat ramps are open now. Even Cottonwood, those wintering wildlife closures have expired. So you've got the entire canyon section now open to you that normally isn't open and accessible during this time of year, because we're usually looking at flows around 3,000 to 5,000 CFS. The Henry's Fork, 643 CFS there at the box, 1,650 CFS on the lower river. As I was saying in our field report earlier this week, the Henry's Fork is usually our most consistent fishery to come online in the spring season. On Tuesday, I saw a lot of Brachiocentrus caddis. I saw a lot of those Mother's Day caddis, small black caddis, tons of blue-wing olives, tons of midges, but we were on the cusp of this cold front that was, you know, finishing its way up. And so the dry fly fishing has been, you know, somewhat sporadic. I would expect that to get really consistent these next couple days when we get some warmer temperatures. We don't have this northerly breeze, and we have our weather patterns, you know, settling out. Warm River, Ashton, Jump Off, Aura, Vernon, Chester, Fun Farm, any of those areas are going to be prime early spring dry fly fishing opportunity spots. If you wanted to journey up to the Box Canyon and some of those areas, that'll probably still be more of a nymphing game, but you'll still probably get into some really good fishing this time of year when, you know, people aren't necessarily crowded up in certain spots, or, you know, the Box Canyon still offers some really good wade fishing. It flows around 643 CFS and things along those lines. The Snake in Jackson, we've got 301 CFS coming out of Jackson Lake Dam, 3,700 CFS there on the lower river. We haven't seen flows increase coming out of the Snake yet, and we've got Jackson Lake coming up on 76% of capacity. So the time is coming. We haven't received any communication on when, but it is coming down the pipe. We've heard some really good opportunities of fishing SKWALAS the past couple days pre this cold front. I would expect that to continue with this warming trend and consistent trend in our weather coming up. I'd also expect some blue-wing olives and some caddis. You know, the trick with the SKWALA fishing game that I've learned is, you know, we want to get out there with those big dries. You know, SKWALAs are size 8, 10, 12s, and get after it in a fashion like you're fishing during the summertime. You're, you know, throwing them and you know, lacing them into banks and buckets and holes and things along those lines. You got to think that of the fish in the colder water temperatures where they're not going to be as aggressive to eat as, say, a golden, a salmon fly, a hopper, and things like that. So my advice is, if you are going to stick with the big dry game during the SKWALA season, keep it in the zone and keep it hunting. Hunt down the banks, and you may get, you know, 5 really good banks where you're not getting a rise, or you get 1 rise at a tail out or something like that. It's not going to be as consistent as our summer big dry fly fishing, but the bonus is we're getting to fish big dries in the end of April and the beginning of May, and we don't have a lot of user traffic or, you know, general angling traffic out there that we would in the summertime. So there's your trade-offs. Keep those big bugs tight into the banks, in those recircs, in those tail outs, those seam lines and those areas where cuddies love it on the snake, and just keep that bug in there, marinating, hunting, and continually in the water, and you will be rewarded in that sense. The fly shop is open Monday through Saturday. Monday through Friday, 8 to 6 p.m. Saturday, 8 to 4. We're still closed on Sundays. Hopefully you get out on the water and enjoy some of the sunshine and a little bit warmer weather. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate all your support out there of World Cast Anglers and the World Cast Anglers Fly Shop, and we'll see you here next week.